4 different funnels, all proven to help you go from zero to profitable on YouTube ads. In case we haven't met before, my name is Brandon Dillon with ResponseFlood.com, where we use YouTube ads to sell coaching, software, and services. And in my last video, it was more philosophical, talking about the reason why behind lead magnets, but you can't take philosophy to the bank. So in this video, we're going to talk more about this tactics and specifically the 4 different funnels that we've seen the most success with launching, scaling, and profiting from using YouTube ads as the traffic source. So let's take these funnels step by step. Now, these aren't presented at any sort of a rank. All of them work very well, but there is a distinction here. So the first 3 that I'm going to be covering are what I would consider front-end funnels. They're better for cold audiences, people that haven't heard of your brand before. And the 4th is, in my opinion, much better as a back-end funnel, better for people that have heard of your brand or perhaps have gone through one of the 3 front-end funnels that I'm about to break down with you. So just keep that in mind. And the funnel that we're going to start with is the tried and true webinar funnel. You've already seen a million of these because they work. Now, there's several different steps that are part of a webinar funnel. We're going to have a webinar registration page. These do come in different flavors. We have evergreens, which are webinars that are not live, and they're basically just recordings. And we have live webinars. For this breakdown, we're going to look at a live webinar structure. We will have a live webinar page. In between, we generally also have a thank you page. Let me add that. And delete this. Drop that there. And then we have this. And then after the live webinar, we generally have a webinar replay page. And then we have the sales page and a order form. And then we have a final thank you page. Now, there are a couple of assumptions that I'm making here. I'm assuming that you're selling right off of the webinar. This isn't always the case. And generally speaking, not set in stone, but generally speaking, it's usually a question of price point. So if you're selling something that's like $2,000 or less, generally speaking, you could sell it right off the webinar. If it's more than $2,000, usually you need to get the prospect onto a sales call. So the webinar will usually push into a sales call, and then obviously the rest of your sales process goes from there. Generally speaking, this is what the structure looks like. So you send your traffic over to the webinar registration page. They get pushed from there to a thank you page where essentially you're starting the nurture process and preparing that lead to actually show up for the webinar. They go to the webinar at the webinar watch page at the time of the webinar. And from here, this is actually better structured this way because this is what it would actually look like. From here, they get, if they like what you have to say on the webinar and they like the offer, they go to the sales page, they plug in their information on the order form, and then they get thanked for that purchase. Now, not everybody that goes to the live webinar will actually buy. Some of them will want to watch again. So generally speaking, if you get a no, you send them to an email sequence. And this email sequence will push to the sales page again. You will also have people that register that don't actually make it to the live webinar, right? For those folks, I'm going to pretend that that's a no. For those folks, you also send them an email sequence, which pushes them to a replay. And then from the replay, they get pushed to the sales page. So that's essentially it in a nutshell. This is an awesome funnel for YouTube traffic. And a lot of the funnels that I'm going to say are awesome for YouTube, part of the reason they work so well is because of the format. It's very intuitive for the user. They're already watching a video on YouTube. They're already obviously consumers of video content. Most people are, but some more than others. Then when you introduce them to a webinar, they're already used to the format. So it ends up being very, very helpful for transitioning over into the sales message. The other thing here is with the webinar, especially for a live one, you have the additional benefit of engagement. This is helpful for so many different reasons. And I'll cover this more in a future video, but just a couple of the big benefits. It's number one, it is an awesome way of building up social proof because other people are there and they're engaging and they're interacting. And number two, it's also an awesome way to do a bit of market research to get a feel for what's working in your messaging and what isn't, what's working in your offer and what isn't. And you can use all of that information to improve your funnel as well as your traffic in the future. So webinars are great. This is a great funnel for YouTube traffic, but it isn't the only one. So let's look at the next one, which is a video sales letter funnel. I covered this in a previous video. Oop, I already have one of these, so let's call it VSL funnel number 2. I covered this in a previous video, which is probably why I have a number 1 already, but I wanted to cover it again here. So the VSL funnel, for all intents and purposes, will feel very similar to a evergreen webinar funnel. The big difference between this and a traditional webinar funnel is essentially the video is pre-recorded. But other than that, a lot of the mechanics will fail and look very similar. So essentially, with a VSL funnel specifically for YouTube traffic, we'll have an opt-in funnel first. From there, they get sent to a content page. This content page, essentially, I'm going to rename this a watch page because this is where the VSL actually lives. Now, as you probably already know, a VSL is just an acronym for video sales letter, but a truly powerful video sales letter will not just be sales. It will be content that also has a pitch baked into it. This is the reason why I do have a watch page named as such, because you're able to sell the VSL itself. That's what you're promoting with your traffic, with your video ads. And essentially you're promoting the content, the value that's inside of that VSL. So anyway, they get sent to a watch page where they consume your content, assuming that they like what you have to say. The next thing that they will generally see is an application page. From there, they get sent to a calendar. After the calendar, they get on the phone with your sales team, and from there you sell them and make lots and lots of money, and your prospect gets lots and lots of value. That's essentially it. It's a very simple funnel. To be frank, this is my preferred funnel. Generally speaking, I run a lot of different sorts of funnels, but this is usually my tried and true just because it is very simple. It's very straightforward. It's very easy to explain to somebody that's new to YouTube ads. And there's a lot less moving pieces when you're comparing it to something like a webinar funnel where you have a lot more to think about, like show up rates and what sort of platform is better or worse. VSL funnels are much more straightforward and much harder to mess up. So this is another awesome funnel for YouTube traffic, but let's keep it going. The next funnel I'm going to call an ebook funnel. Now I'm using ebook in a very loose manner because you can essentially give away anything here. It could be an ebook, it could be an infographic, it could be a audiobook. All of these things work, but the idea is essentially the same. So essentially we send our traffic source to an opt-in page, and then we have a thank you page. So even simpler than a traditional VSL funnel. And this is what you would consider a traditional ebook funnel. But to be frank, this is not the approach that I would necessarily recommend for YouTube traffic. The reason is what I mentioned as one of the benefits for webinar funnels is that the frame of mind of YouTube traffic is going to be very different than something like Google search as an example. People aren't on YouTube to read long form text. They are there to watch videos. So ebook funnels by themselves, the traditional approach, isn't necessarily the best approach. You might recall from the video where I covered choosing your lead magnets, and I mentioned that there's 4 different things that a prospect needs to do. They need to open it, they need to consume it, they need to use it, and then they need to benefit from it. With an ebook funnel, the consumption tends to be much lower than a video funnel, like a VSL funnel, or even a webinar funnel. So in order to get around that limitation, what I generally like to do, instead of sending them to a thank you page where they can download the ebook, is I send them to a content page. And very similar to the VSL funnel, this is not really a watch page, but I'm going to use, actually, I'm going to name this a VSL funnel, VSL page. because there is a big difference between this page and what you see in a traditional VSL funnel. Now, the big difference here is when somebody gets to this page, it isn't content. So essentially how I like to structure this, the top of this page is going to thank them for opting in for whatever you're giving away. In this case, let's say an ebook. And then it's going to say, if you would like additional help, watch this video, essentially. Now, this video is going to be closer to a pure sales message. So this is pure VSL as opposed to a content-oriented VSL. And the real goal here is to get as many of these new leads as possible to take a more affirmative step into your universe. And in my case, for most of the funnels I promote, that means booking a call. So from here, the rest of the steps look and feel very similar to a traditional VSL. So we have an application, then we have a calendar, and then we got our phone. And that's essentially it in a nutshell. Now, when should you decide between an ebook funnel and a VSL funnel? In my perspective, you shouldn't. This doesn't have to be an either-or situation, an either-or decision. What will generally naturally happen as your YouTube ads account matures and your brand matures, so you're going to have several different funnels out there working for you and bringing in leads. So there's no reason to choose between them. Ebooks tend to be where a lot of brands start, just because it's easier, frankly, to put together a PDF, 14-page PDF, and throw that out into the world. But if you are starting out, I would highly recommend starting with a VSL funnel over an ebook funnel because, frankly, they perform better with YouTube traffic. Both of them work, but VSL funnels, as mentioned, are much easier to get profitable. So those are the three front-end funnels, and let's pivot over to the last of these, which is a book a call funnel. I don't know if I have one of these projects already, but let's hope not. I do not. Cool. So for a book a call funnel, this is going to look kind of sort of like a VSL funnel. The difference here is, generally speaking, I don't have an opt-in up front. Your mileage may vary. You may want to put an opt-in funnel in front of it, but because, as I mentioned, these tend to do better for a second step, a back-end funnel. So after somebody's already part of your universe, generally don't need to get their opt-in information again. So you can send them directly to a content page. This is going to be a VSL page. So similar to the ebook funnel that I just mentioned, generally speaking, the video on this video is going to be closer to pure sales pitch and essentially selling the idea of booking a call with your team. Generally speaking, these pages also tend to be very proof heavy. So they'll usually have testimonials and other forms of proof on that page, because the real goal here is to build as much trust as fast as possible so that the user feels comfortable then sending in an application, to go to the calendar, to get on the phone. And that's essentially how that funnel works. Now, as mentioned, this usually works better in the back as a back-end funnel. So generally speaking, what we'll do is we'll have the other three funnels or more running on the front end, and anybody that's ending up on our opt-in list, we end up doubling back and promoting the book a call funnel directly to them. So this ends up increasing one of the main numbers that we monitor is lead to booked call conversion rate. So when we're running this funnel, we end up seeing a bump in that, generally speaking. So strategically, that's just kind of a little tidbit. And that is pretty much it. So this video is more tactical. We walked through 4 different funnels. All of these are phenomenal for YouTube traffic. We've scaled all of these with great success. So I would highly suggest giving them a test in your brand. And hopefully you'll see as much success as we are. That is pretty much it. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, go ahead and subscribe and hit the like button. I'm going to have a lot more content like this. So if you like talking about YouTube ads, geeking out about direct response and funnels and lead generation and high ticket sales, those are all things that I love talking about too. So I'm going to have a lot more content about it. If you like that sort of thing, go ahead, stick around, and I will see you in the next one.